like to call the Whately School Committee to order on February 4th, 2025. First thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes from January 8th.
I move to approve the minutes from January 8th.
And I will second it.
All in favor? Financial statement.
Okay, 8 warrants were signed electronically since the last meeting, totaling $68,663.57. The only thing I want to point out on the expense report, Sirius did send a message to you all about this already, but we did have an unforeseen expenditure with the fire panel. The total replacement with like some electrical work, the panel itself, and then some construction type work we had to do was just slightly over $9,000. So if you look at the building general repairs line right now, it's over by 4,400. Not concerned at this point because we do have funds remaining in the budget to cover that, but it is an unforeseen expenditure that did need a good chunk of our budget. So I just wanted to get that publicly known. And I do not have anything else on this here unless someone has a question about it.
Do we remember the last time that panel was replaced? I thought we changed it when Ralph was still here. There was problems and I thought we replaced it because it wasn't compliant to the standards that it was, and I'm just, okay.
I'm not prepared.
Okay, I'm just asking.
I can find out if you want.
That was my only question.
And the other thing I want to say is that the blinking of the computer screens,
Technical difficulties.
we don't know why it's doing that. Sorry for viewers at home.
So you're in trouble with the other
I think it's
one?
me, actually, yeah. I think I'm the like here.
Chrissy, what do you have for us?
Not a whole lot. Some field trips. Grade 5 students from Whately and Conway went to Smith College and visited the Art Museum and Botanical Gardens. And when they came back, the thing that most impressed them all were the bathrooms.
The artist design ones in the basement of the art museum?
Yes,
Yeah, they are a sight to behold.
but it took me a minute to get the information. Grades 2, 3, and 4 went to Duke to see a production of Lion King Jr. There were 3 Whately students who were in the performance. Congratulations to Vivian Cheswick, Sadie Ashman, and Claire Pompili for an outstanding performance. I would also like to commend our students for being such engaged and respectful audience. Grades 2 and 4 went to the Benesky Museum of Natural History at Amherst College. An upcoming event, Terry Anderson, who retired from here last year, is currently in Tanzania, spending time at Asante Sana, which is the school we partner with for virtual education exchanges, and the fundraising that we do is for Asante Sana. The proceeds of our annual spring plant sale are donated there and have been instrumental in purchasing furniture and technology for the school. This Friday, our students in grades 4 through 6 will be having a video call with students at Asante Sana. Students on both sides of the exchange have been working on activities under the theme of friendship, and will share these during the video call. And Terry's over there to show the coordinating them on her end, so that's kind of cool. We're taking a field trip to Tanzania. It's not going to take a big flight at first. And that's it.
What kind of money are we talking about when we donate money to them?
1,000.
Okay.
You know, people are very generous, especially when we get a plan. We donate some money, and it's great because the kids have been able to see
What advice?
what we put in some work. We earned some money, we donated it, and this is what it buys. And in this world, it's hard for kids to see that connection between donating money and what it does for students. So kind of a big deal. And all over their campus are Whately banners, and their furniture says on it, donated by Whately Elementary School.
Wow. That'd be interesting when Terry comes back. Is she going to come back and talk to the kids at all? After?
Probably.
Yeah.
She just came off a safari, and then she's
Good for
that's
her.
retirement.
Anybody have any questions? Public comment?
Okay. I'm Sally Rice, the building representative for the Union 38 Educators Association, and I've been asked to read a statement. So it starts with a quote from the National Association President Becky Pringle, a statement that she made about reported executive actions that hurt students, public schools, and communities. And she says, most Americans believe that every student deserves opportunity, resources, and support to reach their full potential, no matter where they live, the color of their skin, or how much their family earns. Parents and educators agree our students need more learning opportunities, not less. They need smaller class sizes to get more individualized attention. They need nutritious school meals so that they can pay attention in class rather than to their stomachs. And they need access to mental health supports. They need to be respected for who they are, no matter their race, place, background, sexual orientation, or gender identity. And our students need to learn the good and bad of our history to be prepared to succeed in our diverse and interdependent world. The next quote comes from MTA President Max Page and Vice President Deb McCarthy. This is their statement. They say, we condemn in the strongest possible terms the directive that would allow ICE agents to raid and arrest students in our public schools. It is repulsive to our shared common values, and this cruel policy shatters the trust that families place in our educators and our public schools as safe havens and inflicts lasting trauma on innocent children. As educators, we stand in solidarity with immigrant advocates, community allies, and all who fight for justice and humanity. We will fight against this policy with every tool at our disposal and remain committed to ensure our public schools are spaces of learning, belonging, and safety for all students. Darius Modesto, our superintendent, released 2 statements regarding immigration policies and revisions to Title IX or challenges to LGBTQ plus rights. Union 38 Educators Association fully supports all of these statements that have been made and appreciates that our superintendent sent these out to ensure that our students are supported and protected. We know that not all superintendents have come out with statements supporting these marginalized communities, and we feel fortunate to be in a district and community that values all of its members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So do you have some that you could share with me?
Yeah, you can have it. It's on my
Or like
computer.
virtual, I mean like digitally?
You would like it digitally?
That'd be awesome, because then I can
Gotcha.
copy and paste it into the minutes.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
I guess it's time to talk about the budget again.
All right.
Are you up for it?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's talk about it. I'm gonna share my screen. I'm on week 3 of coughing, so I will try not to do that, but
All right.
that's what it is. Trying to get it where it's big enough.
It's not,
What?
it's not blinking.
The
We are,
report.
but it's-
Meaning like, so I'm watching it online now and it's not blinking. So people at home.
Oh.
So it's the interface between the owl and
It's
the.
the camera, not the, right, or the interface, right, but it's not the.
I've seen the matrix.
Okay, so this is a little bit longer and more detailed report that I provided for you, although the information is the same as last month. I am giving you a draft 1, which is the January draft compared to where we are today. And then we'll talk about next steps moving forward, how we continue to make progress on the budget, because as we go through this, you will see that we are still at a higher than typical level and likely higher than the town can afford to fund this year. So let's talk about the starting point. So 1% general fund budget increase is just over $20,000. And one of our most significant challenges this fiscal year is the deficit in grant and revolving funds, which led to almost a 3% increase before we applied any salary increases or non-wage expense adjustments. So almost 3% with just those 2 factors is really a hard hit for a small school to take. And as a reminder, the reason that we're in that spot is because we did use $40,000 of ESSER funds to help offset the general fund last year. ESSER is no longer available, but the expenses remain. So we moved them onto ESSER off of general fund last year, and now we're putting them back. So that's starting us off in a $40,000 deficit. And then we're going to talk about early childhood a little bit. So the revolving fund has experienced a revenue shortfall in recent years. That is due to rising resident needs. I want to make that really clear. It's not because of any students that are coming from outside the district. We occasionally, although I don't think Whately does, but some of our other schools do take residents from outside of the community. But this is for resident student needs. So when that happens, early interventions are really great. Our students need them. They help us keep those children moving through the levels, and a lot of times prevent out of district placements, but it results in fewer families paying tuition because we're providing free services for special education needs. So revenues have gone down, but expenses have not changed. You know, we don't have a decrease in revenue because we have less kids. So we still need the same staffing. We still have the same expenditures. I'm going to show you a chart that outlines that just so that we can have a little bit more detail there. But ultimately, it was a net change of $22,000 that we transferred from the early childhood revolving fund over to the general fund. We don't have to get into great detail here, but what I did want to show you in this chart is that you can see back in 2019, our tuition revenue was almost $94,000. Our expenses were slightly less, and we were building up our reserves. 2020 hit, programs changed dramatically, especially in 21. We had very limited population that we were charging tuition for, yet we, again, still had to maintain our expenses. So you can see in 21, our end of year balance, we nearly ate up our entire surplus. We had talked about this at the time. It's something we did district wide. Everyone's funds sort of look this way.
It was COVID too, so we had charging for tuition when we
Right.
weren't here.
Yeah. From there, you can see revenue comes back up slightly, but not entirely. So 22, when programs after COVID were starting to really get back into shape, we went from 93,000 just prior years before to 67,000, and that really has been maintained. If you look at the next 2 years of actuals and then the 25 and 26 projections, our revenues really are not getting above that $65,000 mark, yet our expenses are staying pretty consistent. The growth in expenses, just to point out from, here, for example, in 23 to 24, 25, that is only salary increases for whatever staff we're paying out of there. So it's not like we've added expenses. It's just accounting for the COLA growth of any staff members that are paid from this fund. So you can see here in 25 with this projection, by the end of the year, we're only projecting right now to have about $11,000 left at the end of the year. That's not a huge concern unless something comes up where we have an out-of-district placement that suddenly we have to fund, which would really be a much larger problem. We probably wouldn't quite have enough to fund that, even if we had $50,000 in this fund. However, with 11,000 remaining and 62 coming in, we can't continue to fund 80,000 in expenditures, which is where the $22,000 adjustment is coming in. So you can see I'm recommending dropping in 25 from 80,000 to 58,000 for a revolving fund expense, which gives us about 15,000 at the end of next year.
Can I ask a question about the tuition? I know you said it's partially due to, kids coming in who need services and they're not paying tuition. I understand that. But when you look at, a $30,000 difference between now and back in 2019, like how many kids does that account for?
I don't have those details in front of me, but I can tell you that we did look really closely at it when 22 came back around, and we were only seeing that $66,000 mark. There may be a few less kids in the program, which is often also a result of having kids with more needs. You try to balance your classroom out, but you only have so many resources within the program itself. So I can get some more details on that, and we can look at enrollment numbers.
Yeah, I think that'd be
from
good because that's
prior
just a huge number.
I mean, it's
Usually
probably,
not that
if it
long.
were a full paying student, let me look up what it won't change. Right? If you had a 5-day kid that was full day for 5 days, I know Fridays are still half days, right? But they would be considered still a full day kid. I think the tuition is like $9,000 if you're full pay for 5 days. So you could only be
So it's
looking
not that
at,
many kids.
3 or 4 kids
If
potentially.
they're full time.
Yeah. But I'll take a closer look at the numbers with Kim again, and then I can follow up with you guys. So we're really at a point where, you know, this isn't something that we can negotiate. We still need the staffing. We have to cover the expenditure. So the only option is to move it to another funding source. That funding source happens to be the general fund because Whately doesn't have, you know, any other special education accounts. They do have school choice, but those numbers are also dwindling, which we're going to continue to talk about as well. So that gives you some details on where that $22,000 shift is coming from. Any other questions before I keep going? Okay.
The other thing to keep in mind, that people might not know, is that if students who have special needs don't come to school here because they're not yet school age, we still have to provide services. So even if they didn't come to our pre-K, they're still entitled to the services. So I just think it's an important piece of information. I don't think a lot of people know that.
So if they go to a private preschool, you're saying,
Private
still
preschool
have to
or no
provide-
preschool, Miss Sally, or work with a lot of friends that come in from other places to get services for speech. So
all right, so other level service expenditures are included in the next chart. So we talked about the ESSER adjustment already. We talked about the early childhood adjustment. In draft 1, we talked about Whately's sick buyback retirement expense for next year, which will be paid out in July. That's roughly $60,000. That was presented in draft 1 at level services. We have taken it off because we're going to propose that we request that the town pay for that under a separate warrant article or with other funding source. So we backed that out of the budget. Salary increases are included in draft 1 and draft 2. And what I want to point out, draft 1 shows 101,000. Draft 2 shows 45,000. We didn't actually decrease wages. We're just using supplemental funding, which I'm going to talk about a little bit further. When we did the first draft, we did not apply rural aid. I have applied that in here. So that's automatically going to help offset those salaries. We have a COLA in the contract for our busing, so that's been accounted for. We talked a little bit about the water usage invoice that is new to us. That's $2,000. And then there was an adjustment proposed for almost $5,000 to cover software and hardware expenditures based on actuals. We pulled that out in draft 2, just because, you know, $5,000 saves us $5,000 and it's a tiny percentage point. The original draft at level services in January was presented at 11.07%. With the sick buyback being pulled out and removing the hardware and software and then using rural aid, we've been able to bring level services down to 5.26%. It's a pretty significant decrease. However, it's still a pretty large percentage for growth for the towns.
Good job getting it down.
Yeah. What did we ask for last year? What was the percentage increase?
I think I have that. Yeah. We can jump to it.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
5.57. So while Henry asked that question, the average budget increase in the last 6 budget cycles has been 3.42%. Last year it was 5.57, but I did want to point out that 2% of that was just for the transportation contract because we had that big change. So if we hadn't had such a significant growth there, we would have been about 3.5. All right, so coming back up. So I did just talk about this a little bit. The table above shows that we reduced the budget level services in draft 1 by 5.81% to draft 2. We used 35,000 of rural aid. Oh, I didn't mention this. This is obviously up for discussion. This is an administrative recommendation. We had a lot of conversation internally about it. If you recall, we added a 0.5 full-time equivalent math interventionist position in last year's budget. We did use ESSER funds to fund that. We had talked about that being a 1-year position. The original draft in January included that, and we are recommending that we pull that out at this point strictly for the fact that we did talk about it being 1 year, and we literally cannot afford it. So that reduces the budget by 33,000, and then the sick buyback. So those 3 pieces help account for that 5.81% reduction, which is primarily reflected here in salaries and wages, because we've pulled the 33,000 off and then we've applied the road. that all makes sense how we got to where we are at 5.26.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I did just want to quickly point out two things. Removing sick buyback from the budget doesn't eliminate the town's expense. We're still going to ask them to fund it separately, so that it would be another 2% if we did have it in the budget, but they are going to have to try to help us figure out how to fund that. I just want to have that publicly stated. We're not dropping it. We're just trying to shift it to another funding source that's not the general fund. And then rural aid is a slight risk. We don't like to use one-time funds. ESSER is a perfect example of that. However, the state has made a commitment to continue to attempt to fund rural aid. I think 15 million is their goal, right? If it were to be fully funded. The other thing is that not only is it subject to state appropriation, it's based on a formula, which includes enrollment numbers. So that could fluctuate. And it actually did for Whately this year. Last year, it was closer to 40,000. This year, it's only 35. Could go back up if, there's a change in the population because it's based on student density. And the size of your town. But those are just things that I want us to be mindful as we go through a budget process. Like if we did not get rural aid next year, we'd be in the same position we're having right now where we're starting off with a $35,000 deficit because we don't have that funding. It's here, we should use it. We're recommending that. I just want to make sure everyone understands that it is a bit of a risk. New initiatives. So we talked about funding 2 new IA positions based on student needs and IEP requirements. We did look at the outgoing students, so 6th grade class, or perhaps anyone that Chrissy may know is not returning next year, to see if there was anyone with one-to-one support in the current year that maybe we could just filter over. That's not the case. We're going to need all of the IAs that are in the building to support the students as it stands. So we cannot reallocate any existing staff. Of course, one of the options for discussion is not funding these 2 positions and using the existing staff anyway, or it could be existing resources. So do we cut salaries from somewhere else if we had a retirement, which we do have one next year, right? That could potentially free up funds to cover the IAs because we have to meet IEP requirements if the student is required to have a one-to-one.
I was going to say, what are we, are we legally bound to these 2 positions?
Yes.
So we either fund it here, like you're suggesting, or we take 2 current IAs and put them with these students, meaning there are teachers without these IAs.
So you have to be right. You're technically making reductions to support those, the services elsewhere. So, yeah.
It's a tough position to be in for sure. You never want to cut resources, and it doesn't necessarily have to be IAs either. There could be other things that we consider. Nobody wants to talk about specials, but that is definitely one area that typically schools are in this type of position. That's one of the first places that they go to, library, media center, those kind of things. But that would be some of the hard conversations that we're having if we decided that we cannot afford 2 new IAs, which is $66,000, somewhere between 60 and 66, depending where they fall on the salary schedule. We could also, do we fund 1 position and then use internal resources to take care of the other requirements.
Is it something looking down the road where the graduating class this year doesn't have anybody that can transition, but 5th grade might have an eye that can move so that you can, again, sort of think of it as a 1-year commitment and maybe make that more marketable for the town?
I mean, we certainly could look at it, but you never know who's going to come in for residence either, whether it's, preschool or kindergarten or another, move in that we're not expecting. So.
And will these 2 positions be for 6 years? Are they going to be their entire career here?
Not regularly reevaluate IEPs and.
You should plan it that way, right? And students their IEPs can change, and we got to be careful not to. We're such a small school that we can't kind of talk about a student's IEP.
Right.
Students can come off IEPs; their services can be reduced. In the sense of, an IEP can be shared in other ways and that kind of thing, but you're not going to see it in a year. You're not going to have 1 year need 1-to-1, next year you don't.
Right.
Usually it's going to be for a little while.
Are both the kids, local kids at our, in Whately? Or is one of them?
If they weren't, if any students that are school choice that need a one-to-one gets billed back to their school, same district, so wouldn't show up here.
They are residents.
They're not,
Okay,
okay.
residents, yeah. So just like people know, because, you know, people talk about school choice and what's that, that expense, that we pass that expense back to the district. And so that district has the right to sit at the table while you're discussing the IEP, and sometimes does. So, you know, so there's accountability for those kind of things, but. Yeah, and I think, you know, one of the conversations that I'm starting to hear from, you know, different town folks and different towns, I'm not saying it's coming from Whately, but it's like, wow, you know, you're educating the same number of students and the price keeps going up and up and up. But the needs have gone up and our level of intervention is improved.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting students, you know, off IEPs and into, you know, greater, inclusion and options when they reach high school and post-high school plans. And so we are making better progress for those students as well. So it's kind of a dual thing. There are higher needs and we're addressing them even better than we ever have. And so, yes, it costs more to educate kids today than it did 20 years ago because we're doing a better job. And that takes resources.
Yeah, and I mean, the way I look at it, I would ask the town to help us fund that because, I mean, if you have to hire the one-to-ones, you have to have them. But I wouldn't want to take away resources from the rest of the kids for these two students.
But we, at the end, because I want to have that discussion.
Yeah, we can keep
I just wanna
going.
make sure- I want to have that discussion, because like, that goes to like, what is the next step,
Yeah.
right? Because you're making
Exactly.
those statements that are, yeah, we have to have a plan of what this committee wants to do. But let's get through make sure we have all the
Yeah.
X's and O's on those.
So this has been on the screen for a minute and people have probably already read it, but just to say it for the record too, I'm really encouraging us to look at the whole picture of what the cost is for our towns and just to be aware that adding 2 new full-time positions means that there's more potential labor burden for the towns as well. So that could increase their health insurance budgets.
Health
too.
insurance. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
So where does that put us? So draft 1 of the budget with the 2 new IAs was a 14.28% increase. With the changes that we put in place, reducing by 5.81%, we're at 8.48 if we were to fund everything that's been presented today.
Sorry, so the second draft, the February draft, that has not renewing the interventionist.
Correct. And applying the rural aid. The
But-
interventionist
but-
is about 1.5%, so you'd be around 10 if you funded the 2 new IAs, had the interventionist,
retirement.
the retirement the
Asking
town
the
would
town
pick
to
up.
Pick up the retirement.
So
It's an
now
issue
you're
for
at,
need and
you know, you're
15.
back
It's a
up
nice
to the
presentable number.
14% back to
I mean, we're pretty much at 14.
Yeah,
anyway,
that's just,
slice
that's
it.
just, you know, it's a little bit
It looks
more.
prettier,
Yeah.
Shelley, but
You don't have to have decimal points.
All right, so next steps. You know, there's some options that we can talk about, and I do think we need some direction, especially going into the finance and select board meeting. Darius and I have talked a lot about, yes, we have to present the budget to the town, but this really isn't about a need. This is about, or this isn't about a want, it is about a need. This is what we need to meet the students' needs in our community, whether they're residents or whether they're choosing to come here from school choice. So I think,
Yeah, so, you know, we're gonna, obviously it says that we're gonna start, after this meeting, we're gonna start having conversations with the formal conversations coming in February. But, you know, we will, we're in a public meeting, so these numbers are not shared publicly about where we're at. So we want the finance committee, select board, and such to start to digest those numbers that are coming. And start having conversations about what is the town's capability. That's what we don't know. We can read the cherry sheets and make guesses, but we don't know what the town's plans are for their personnel and other departments, and ongoing thing like that. And it just gets, and when we had to do this, you know, we had one budget. We could do that data down and have an idea where things are. We just don't have that level. So, you know, I've sent out a message to the select board and chair of the finance committee to say, listen, we're talking about it tonight. and we're gonna have, we're gonna have some kind of heavier discussions later on. You have to remember the way elementary your school is set up, the way the state sets it up, is that you guys get to choose what your number is that you put forward, right? So we're going to talk with the town, but you guys also have your own power of what do you think the school needs, and you work with the town to come up with a number that the town can afford. You can reach a point where the town can't afford it. Okay, so, and we're gonna be close, I think. I think that we're gonna see Frontier is also up, which means the town has more revenue. We can't release the Frontier's numbers because we've done publicly yet, but we're guessing that it's going to be up, but that also means the town may have more revenue. But because Frontier's numbers, assessment numbers are based on the amount of revenue the town takes in. It looks at how much money you have and then your percentage of students that attend. So we found over the years that if your numbers went up, your revenue went up in the town. But we don't have all those details.
It's still gonna be pretty significant between the two.
It's gonna be a lot. And so the question is, there's a couple of things. One, do they have free cash to cover it? So do they have savings from previous years that they can apply to next year's budget? And so they take it and they can pay that retirement out and they can cover the difference. And sometimes that's what they did my first year here. We were in a budget crisis, but they had enough free cash where they kind of, they said they bailed out the school. The next thing is that they have to do an override, and people cringe when they hear it. It is a normal adjustment to the market because you can only grow 2.5%. If you have contracts that are bigger than 2.5%, if you have insurance rates that are bigger in the town, within the town, none of those things really, it's a made up number. They pass a law that every now and then the town has to adjust and make a greater thing. So they would ask for something called an override, which they would increase the amount of taxation that you'd have to get the people to agree to it. Okay. Whately's a mixed bag on that. You know what I mean? You'd have to make sure that people really understood what they were voting for. Because what they'd be voting for is the third option is they could say, we can't afford it. You need to reduce your budget. Okay. And what is that number, right? So we can remove the 2 IAs and say, okay, we're going to adjust, IA, that kind of thing. That may not be enough. We don't know what that number is. And every single one of those hurts are what we provide to students, right? Because we say there's a need. If we remove a need, then it hurts what we give. So as part of our thing. So we got to be, they outside groups do not get to choose how cuts are made. In fact, school committee really doesn't get to choose how cuts are made. They go to the administration gives proposals, the school committee then approves those proposals. So there's not going to be a debate here whether or not we cut, I don't want to even say that, I want to say, I'll say something that we don't do. Cut farming or farming elective, because that kind of thing, that will not be a public debate. It'll be just the proposal and then just be agreed upon so that it's not done that way. So that's essentially how it all works. So the next phase, how I see it now, is to start having conversations with the town, to be able to communicate. There's not a surprise that we're here. We were very clear last year, at least we thought we were very clear, that we used ESSER money and ESSER money was going away and then we were going to start an deficit. We said that. The finance committee heard us say that, and whether or not they remembered or not, we'll find out. But we knew this year was going to be a bad year. I talked to the new town administrator in July, and I said, "We'll see you during budget season. You're going to have a tough year." We knew back then there's nothing we can do, right? We used funds that we kind of pushed forward, and we're obviously the 2 instructional assistants is not a need that we knew was coming. You never know what kind of money comes and goes, and you just kind of have to play it out. So.
But those are the big things for us to continue having a conversation about: the math interventionists, the 2 IAs, making sure that the sick buyback can be funded separately. And then do you want to talk about the other thing that we discussed today?
Correct. We can go ahead and say,
No, you can do it.
When it's bad news, you should say it. No, so the other thing you can do is also look at our expenditures this year and freeze it. So budget freezes, right? And I make up this term through the years: a hard freeze and a soft freeze. Hard freeze means you freeze everything. A soft freeze means you try to find areas that you can do without this year. Examples of that would be, reduce expensive professional development that hasn't been signed up for yet. You know what I mean? Saying like, get your professional development and anything that's happening from April on, if you haven't signed up, we're gonna ask you not to do that. Outside of what you can track without. Other kind of things from supplies that technology, if we can go without buying a smart board or something like that, there's a couple thousand there, a couple thousand there. They start to add up. And if we can get up to 20,000, it's a percentage, right? And so we could probably in a soft freeze save $20,000, right? A hard freeze probably you could do more, but again, dropping, if that means next year that we can keep the staffing at full because we've saved this year, that's important.
Yeah, I think we could easily pull a percentage point from this year's funding just by looking at some of the expense reports. I mean, you guys have the expense reports. You can see the things that still have larger balances. The hardware account is a prime example. Like, do we really have to replace equipment this year? And if there's something that has to be replaced, then we have a conversation about it. But can we hold off? Because that would save in itself almost $15,000.
I mean, ideally, so you say the other question is like, how do you stop this tailspin you're in? Because you need an in override, and that's when towns do it. Is I say you need an override, or you need to bailing out the non-union funds. You know what I mean? So like we did the ESSER, overpay 1 year so that the following year you're not starting in deficit. So that if they can do that and that kind of thing, that's how you pull out of the cycle. Is to be able to put more money in than normally the schools would get in a single year.
I do see a cycle of several years of challenges though, and I think we started talking about this last year. Revolving fund, I think we're probably going to need another small adjustment next year just to keep that afloat for early childhood. And then school choice is going to be a problem next year as well, because we have more outgoing sixth graders than we have space for in kindergarten for applicants. So we're not going to be swapping dollar for dollar.
Right. The weird thing to say, there are too many Whately kids in kindergarten. So we're losing school choice kids that are part of the sixth grade class. They were giving us some extra money and replacing them in the incoming class is full of Whately kids.
Are we not
How
having,
dare that?
Yeah.
are there not, school choice kids applying to other grades?
We do have some that are applying to other grades. The tricky part is a lot of times they have a kindergarten sibling or they have a sibling. We have a
And the
number.
rule is you have to take the sibling.
No, I can offer
You can offer one and not
but
the other.
they don't typically. We've had people leave one in one school and
Yeah, I know people that do.
bring the other
So
one here.
We have a
You said which sibling you like more.
We have a sibling preferred
paper, scissors.
policy where, so if you have a sibling, so you as a school committee can open up school choice to which classes. If you open up school choice to a class, there's a lottery. And let's say, there's more than, let's say you open up one slot. Siblings get first priority to either A, the lottery, if there's multiple siblings, you're only doing one spot, or you take siblings first and then you do a lottery for the remaining people. So sometimes we're kind of like, well, yeah, and Chrissy's probably gonna say it's on the agenda. We're talking about school choice tonight. So we can kind of go ahead.
But even if we have applications in other counties, it may not be a grade level that we can bring in someone who's not within the district already. Like if the composition of the class is already more challenging, we may not accept a school choice student even if we have an application. So the older grades don't necessarily translate in the same way.
Right, I think you need to look at it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Looking at everything.
Can I ask you before you jump in that? I'm gonna go back to the math person.
Yeah,
I mean,
sorry.
I know we're gonna save $33,000 by not having, it was a 1-year position, but what's a teacher's position by having this person here? If things happen, I think.
Yeah, so the intervention has spoken to you
It's
and
not a cut I want to make if that's what you're asking.
Well,
All right, so you talk about a little bit
It's a-
what it's done this year.
yeah, I guess I'm sure the effect is actually measured next year. more than it is this year, because this year they're doing the labor, so you see the results more next year, but
Right, but the immediate results have been to get a real lens on what's going on with some kids that we've had that have been struggling. So I feel like we've gotten a lot of good information about what kids need, and we had first envisioned she would be fourth, fifth, and sixth, and we've been able to bring third grade along. She sees a group of kids in third grade. There have been instances where, one that I can think of where she sort of spotted a child who might need further evaluation based on starting to work with her and not seeing progress. And it's we've got some kiddos who can look okay, but are missing some foundational pieces. So I would say this year has been great in terms of identifying what's going on. And I do think we'll see some results this year, but it does take a few years of having something in order to see the full benefit.
Maybe before we say no altogether on that math person, maybe we should, we're going to talk to Paul tomorrow, right? I mean, he doesn't make decisions, but he wants to get in on what we're talking about tonight with the budget and stuff. So,
Right. As the finance committee, when we look at our budget, I just want to make sure that we have a problem, no matter how you slice the numbers, and I want to make sure I get through slicing the numbers. That's why I asked Paul to sit down with us just to make sure that he's comfortable with the data that we're giving him, so that we can say we agree on the problem, instead of any kind of conversation like, where's this money going? Where's this money going? Let's get that all kind of settled up. And we'll do it in a public meeting as well, but I just want to make sure that we don't have the public meeting and we can't answer questions because we're not prepared for the line of thing. And so it's really about increasing that communication and then say, okay, now we have a problem. How can we address the problem? And that's, I want to get more to that.
good.
Shelley, really quick, I know you said it, but I missed it. For the salary increases, how are you funding that? Because it's less than what it was the first time
The
around.
33,000 for the math interventionist was pulled out,
Is going to
and
that.
then the 35,000 for rural aid.
Okay. And those salary increases, even though we're not done with negotiations, how did you figure
There's
that?
a placeholder in the budget.
Okay.
We don't know if it's going to be where we land,
Right.
which could be problematic.
Right.
But
They could change where, guess there. So
and it's not just teachers and IA, sorry, it's all staff,
All
so
staff.
school-based staff, central office staff, everyone's lumped in there.
Okay.
And as Bob said, if you're uncomfortable with cutting the interventionist position, we can put it back in for the place of discussion moving forward. That number is going to have to go back up. You know what I mean? And so it's the position, while there's a need for it, we do also have to be with the realities. And it is somebody who knew it was going to be a 1-year position. It's not somebody who has been with us for years, and we're kind of removing a family member, so to speak. So that's kind of why it was a little bit easier, because it's we've been done going out before. We'll get back to it. Would we rather have it in there? Yes, but
I hate to take that person away because I think it's important, but the two IAs that are 1-to-1, those are have twos. This is not, unfortunately,
We'll see how the ball rolls. I only brought it up. I know we're taking.
deciding what we present to them.
I want to get a point of view from the teachers, from the principal. It's an important tool for us. The person's very important,
Well,
but
no, I agree. And I think, Bob, if you're comfortable standing up in front of finance committee and saying that, I think
I
do it.
I would.
I think
so there's going to be, so we'll have that conversation. And the thing is, the amount that schools are going to be asking for between both, and Frontier's got a modest budget coming forward, but it's assessments. We don't control. They're coming in. What did we say? We haven't presented it yet, but it's Well, it's not low, but it's always where it's in the same kind of range of that 3 or 4%ish, you know what I mean? And so,
Rarely for it.
right, and so it's a good normal growth there, but the problem is the assessments come in. So if Whately's gonna get hit with the higher assessments, which we know they're gonna get a little bit higher than, they're not getting a reduction. And so between the two education pots together, they only have so much revenue.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we could be eating most of it unless they have other ways of being paid for something, how they have been moving stuff around. So there's gonna be a reality talk about, and maybe they do have savings. They did a few years ago and they were able to use it in that way. And maybe they'll say, you know what, you need to lower it a couple percent so that we can pay for it this way. Then we'll come back, we'll have a conversation and put other things on the.
So it sounds like we should, present, at least at the initial meeting with them in February on the 18th. It would be 8.48%, which we just talked about, plus I'll add the math interventionist back in, so that we can see what that number looks like and talk to them about all of the needs. So
And I
we'll be at
think-
about 10%, 10.5%.
We're talking to them about that person, kind of put that into quantitative, look at it that way, like how many kids is this person servicing?
Mhm.
Just to make it numbers based for them, because that's what they're gonna ask.
Yeah.
They're gonna ask, how many, kids does this person see in a week? How many kids is this person gonna help in the future? What's it doing? I mean, I know we don't have test scores yet, but have you seen improvements with these kids? Like, those are the questions that they ask. And I think if we can back that up by saying, yes, we've helped X amount of kids, it's really helping the school, our numbers are gonna be up on MCAS, that kind of stuff. I think,
Bring in more school choice kids.
like, if we can show that this person is important,
They just have no room to.
Third
I was
grade.
here, I had a class of 27 kids. So I was in class of 27, we had one IA and it was Lola Stone.
Well, I mean,
She is a miracle
she runs a
worker,
tight
but-
shift, so.
We work with three.
Yeah, Hartford School, if it says all the
So
kids
was that
outside, we could do
27,
that.
27,
What was going on?
I don't know, something in the
Some
water
water.
that year. I don't-
Because we have some grades where I'd have,
One,
I have like
What's the biggest class you've had since you've been here?
20.
20? And then,
And in some of those, not so much.
but things have changed even since you've gone to school.
Oh, yes.
I
You know, with-
kids in some of my-
We probably had some kids in our class that needed one-on-one attention and didn't get it,
We have something like in current 5th grade, it's half and half school choice and Whately residents. So
That's
I'd have,
different.
I'd have 8 kids in there if it was just Whately residents.
Right.
So
It's interesting how now,
27
like,
when you-
kindergarten is mostly.
seems to be
stately, yeah.
coming back up. And I don't know if it's all Pine Plains Estates. We're getting a lot of kids from down there. But we've had full kindergarten classes last week, which is great.
But it's gonna hurt our budgets
It
in the
hurts the
future if we
school
don't have school
choice.
choice.
I think there must be a baby boom from COVID. I don't know, no one's ever not talking about it. I'm saying that because all
Yeah,
four of
think about
our elementary schools have waiting lists for kindergarten.
I think it's
In double
also
digits.
that,
So it's,
Wow.
there's a lot of more, there's either the words out to that group of kids or there's more of them.
Yeah.
And we can't take them because we have, in all of our schools, it's the
There's
same.
one residence in
There's
all
mostly
of them.
residents and maybe 1 or 2 are trying to play that guessing game of how many we're gonna have. Because you don't wanna, you don't wanna, accept 20, 22, have 4 kids moving in the district and they would start.
That's a
Lizzie's
no.
out of town for that meeting, right? And you're out of town for the February 18th meeting.
we can
Yes.
join you from the beach. If that.
or maybe not, it's not warm.
Going to be-
Yes. Do you have a sense, and I know not all the numbers are public yet, but roughly, if we're using that 8.48% increase, how that compares to the other schools? Are we gonna stand out as, we're
It's
asking the
hard.
most?
Yeah.
We like to be overachievers.
Yeah. Nothing but the best over here.
Yeah, we got 2 up and 2 down.
Yeah.
So even, I can say that a lot because they're gonna be trying, and so even Sunderland, they're both struggling.
And Conway is a little bit higher
A
than
little higher
normal
than
too,
normal.
but
Dearborn's
not
in good shape.
8% or 10%.
And Dearborn's in good shape just because they've had larger capacity to reduce over the last few years, so they haven't had to use.
Yeah.
Because they're getting smaller too. So like, I mean, if you were to say 10 years down the road, they're gonna be in the same spot as you in the sense of the way it's trending. They don't have the 3 sections with all the school choice kids and all that kind of stuff that's being reduced as well. So
And Conway does have the grant problem. They use ESSER money
Right.
to offset the current year.
Okay.
That's really their biggest challenge. They don't have a revolving account issue currently. Like we're having with early childhood here, but
that's a good question.
I also wonder if there are other smaller schools, like is Hatfield struggling and would it close in a way? that
Other-
would benefit?
Other elementary schools in Franklin County are definitely struggling, and they've been doing that for years while we've been kind of riding along this time. You know, and no resident's gonna want to hear it. You know, Whately's tax rate is excellent. You know what I mean? Like, they don't want to hear, I mean, you look at these neighboring towns where they're paying, 5% higher. You know what I mean, to fund their public schools, and their other resources in town. It's tough because there's no commercial. It's going to eventually it's going to get to that. It's going to get to a point where they're going to have to raise that tax rate a little bit to meet up with the needs to may not look like it nationally, but the government is supposed to take care of its people, and you're supposed to fund that government. to take care of people.
It's usually how it's supposed to work.
So on the 18th, we're gonna present the 8.48 increase. And then what it looks like to keep
Plus
the
the
math
math interventionist,
interventionist.
yeah.
Well, I wonder if there's, I don't know if this is the place to talk about strategy and presenting it. Like if there are 3, here's 8.4, here's 10, here's the 14. Again, I've never been in the meeting with the financial committee, so I have no idea.
So there's a couple things. One is they're just going to look at the lowest number because that's what I would do. I would say we're showing 2 other ones that if we can't afford the lowest number, we're not looking at any number higher than that. The other thing to be careful of is that it's not their job to reduce your budget. And so we have to be, I think we got in there, was it lately or was it during time where we got kind of like, if you want to cut our budget, then tell, you know what I mean? Like it's they can say that we are not going to be able to approve your budget. It really should be cut and blank. Like behind the scenes, they can say like, this is where we'd like to land up with it. Basically, they're going to say, we're not going to recommend your budget for the town. You get yourself your own fight there as well. You could say, well, we're going to bring our budget forward without your approval. And then it's you versus the finance committee and town meeting floor. And if you're in that position, then you need an override, which you really do need to, I think it's not illegal about it. I think they're going to talk less about that, but if you got into this kind of, we don't want this relationship, we want to work with them, but if you got into this kind of thing, like fund the school versus not fund the school, residents with kids versus residents without kids, kind of going, I mean, you kind of see that when it comes to new buildings or, those kind of taking on new routes. But we don't know where that is yet. That's jumping ahead, but it's good to kind of understand how it plays out. The first thing to find out is, what can the town do? What is it able to do? And then go from there,
But
It'd be
I
interesting
think,
here.
when you look at the numbers, if we're at 10% with the math interventionist plus another 60,000 for sick buyback, 12% is not going to fly.
It's not just
just
percentage,
not
you gotta
gonna-
look at how much the actual money is, and you look
Yeah,
at how much the
their
new
growth.
municipal revenue the town itself gets in a particular year. And that's the number I'm looking at, and that's why I know it's gonna be tight. I just don't know what their savings is.
Right,
Like,
they have a
what
lot of free
savings do-
cash.
Right, what do they get? Because they did a lot of ESSER money, so many times when they have to spend on the last of their ESSER money. ARPA, thank
Yeah,
you.
same thing.
If their ESSERs at ARPA. So they may have had savings because they used that money and didn't use, so they may be there. And then there also has to be the willingness for people to spend savings on school. So, I mean, those are all the realities of where we're at.
We do have a great younger population in town. We don't have all old folks like me. I mean,
It's
it's
a healthy discussion, like,
Yeah.
I know people, you talk about money, it's always emotional, but it's a healthy discussion to have. In the sense of what is the What is the revenue source of the town? Is it appropriate? Does it need to be adjusted? Does the town disagree with it? If the town disagrees with it, then, we're gonna be in a spot of having to do reductions, right? And that's just what it comes down to. The question is, how do we fight that battle if we have to fight that battle moving forward? So,
And you're saying that another option is an override to be proposed, but how quickly can the turnaround?
I don't make that decision, right? I or you don't make that decision. You put a budget forward. to
And the town says we are willing to do an override in this
Correct.
case.
And so we've done 2 overrides in Sunderland. Okay, because they've had it twice because it's usually on the back of schools, right? Because we have the majority of the budget. It's usually the school, the majority of personnel, so therefore we have the majority of inflation bound, or call it, I guess inflation bound, we have more employees. So the cost of keeping people employed goes up greater than 2.5%. And not just on, what's the contract? No, it's not just contract. It's all the other things from insurances to, and so on and so forth, and to keep market value. And that's why we got hit on transportation, which put us into this deficit to begin with. And transportation is still the best deal in Franklin County. Like they were just doing a market thing. They were, I think it was fair business practices. We don't like it, but it's, it's not
We're the
like
only
they
game in
didn't,
town.
they didn't gouge
Like
us.
Comcast.
What they gave us was the market price compared to what Mohawk's paying and what Gil Montague's paying and what, all those other things. And so they didn't gouge us. They just said, hey, this is what it costs us to do business. And we shouldn't be, the town shouldn't be getting savings on us. So, anyway.
Okay.
Did you want to talk about school choice at all? Are we all done with?
It's on the agenda.
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to piggyback or,
That's the next thing on the
okay,
agenda. So guess what? You get back either way.
yeah, we're all.
I'm gonna-
Listen to your.
Before we get, sorry, Ken. No, thank you. I just want to make sure I understand what the next step is. So by the end of the meeting tonight, we have a cemented number, or do we already agree on, we have to vote on that number that we're going to present, or does it just,
We don't.
we don't have to do anything?
No.
You would vote on it if you guys disagree. You know what I mean? So we have a budget. We're gonna bring it forward on 18th. I'm just saying, like, it's not your final number.
Right.
You definitely have to vote your final number after the public hearing. But if you were contentious about anything within the budget as a committee, and so you said, Bob saying, we got 10%, you're saying, you would have to vote to say, this is what we're moving forward. But I think we all are on the same page of what we're gonna bring
All
forward.
right, just making sure that I wasn't missing a procedure here.
But eventually you do have to vote.
But yeah, all
To
right.
stamp what's actually going forward.
Okay.
So like every year at this time, you guys are gonna need to vote whether or not we will take school choice and whether or not you will give me the power to decide how many slots in each class. I don't know if what discussion you want. I can tell you the numbers of what we have currently. At this moment, we have 36 school choice. We have 6 who will be leaving us from 6th grade.
Unless we fill those other slots from other grades, we can't fill it with kindergarten next year at all. So we're gonna be at least 6 down from next year. We're gonna be down at 30 or 31 then, right?
Unless we try to fill it.
Unless we
with
try to
other
fill them with the other classes.
But is there any space in the other classes right now?
Second grade, the next year's second grade, potentially 2. Next year's 4th grade, 5 to 7, that's particularly small class. 5th grade, 2 to 4, 6th grade, 2 to 4. But I don't,
You won't see that many applications in the whole.
no, I won't.
Yeah, you gotta get them.
And if I do, it'll be because they've got a kindergarten or a first grade. To say no to that.
Is there any reason, as the board members here, that we wouldn't approve school choice to the maximum amount that you feel comfortable filling in a class? So can I make that motion?
Yeah.
So motion to allow school choice for next year to the maximum, I don't know what the best wording is.
Principal's discretion.
Principal's discretion.
She knows she budget wise.
I mean, plus, let's know every class, even though we only have 13 in this class, we might have 4 or 5 kids in there that need,
You know, we always think of needs.
yeah, needs.
Which
Oh, yeah.
Which is why in pre-K, the total number of kids has gone down because we have to consider the need in the class.
Isn't this what all the other schools do as well?
All right, so I made my motion.
I have a second.
All in favor?
And we're starting this process a little earlier. This may, for those of you around, usually this is in March. Just trying to get that opened up earlier and,
Are we gonna do any advertising at all?
We haven't in the last few years, but when we used to put it in the newspaper, when people would come to us for school choice, we would ask them like, how did you, and no one said they saw it in the newspaper, like no one reads it.
No, I think you're gonna advertise
daily
it somewhere else.
Or do we have it on our website? Yeah,
It's on
will
the
it have,
website,
I'll wear a sash around town. It says
PTO
school
can put
choice.
something on social media to say, if other student,
but you can also put it in our website, right? Can't you put it in, the school choice openings in these grades
yeah,
or
we can
something?
do that.
Which doesn't cost us anything.
it's, the word of mouth is out there. Obviously, we have the applications for kindergarten, so it's out there amongst the preschool programs. There's all of our preschool program. Again, across 4 schools.
Are we all done with school choice then?
Did you vote it?
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to see it advertised on the website.
Yeah.
Like, even if you only put accepting students in grades 1 through 6. Yeah. Kindergarten's not an option, then leave it out. But I think something on the website would be, because that's where someone's gonna go first.
Yeah.
If they're gonna check out our school, they're going to the website, they're not going to the
Wow,
newspaper.
that's a great school. Look at that school,
I read
It's a
about
great
this
school.
in the.
All our good administration.
No, there's definitely word of mouth out there. I mean, I know
Yeah.
people. that
Yeah,
talk
if you're
about it
like,
all the time.
I'm dissatisfied with this school, you will go to the school website of the district you're curious about. So, oh yeah, they're taking.
Right, exactly.
It's logical.
I don't know how our website works either, but some of them even put like a pop-up. So when you first open the website, that screen pops up. I don't know if that's something ours does, but I'm not a website designer.
Yeah. And then I have a donation clause at the bottom.
Yeah, one year I was trying to figure out how to somehow figure out the algorithm so that when someone locally Googled school choice, that like we would be.
You're
Oh,
doing a
okay,
main
yeah.
source in
Yeah.
SEO.
All right. I got some exciting news that we did work on Shelley's new contract and
Yay.
she's gonna stay with us and all the Derek's probably will talk, but all the chairs got together and either Zoom, I think everybody was Zoom.
Yeah, because I was.
I was down in North Carolina. I remember I was down in North Carolina, so we had a great meeting and great results, and we're here unless you have something else you wanna.
Basically what the committee did is extend her contract. So, she was gonna be up for renewal as it was anyway. So at the same time, they basically gave a 3-year contract, a 4-year contract they conclude this year. So she was given a salary adjustment for this year of just around, just over 3%. And then, had a market adjustment for next year to 150,000. And then we'll be following the COLA of Unit A of the period of the 30th district for the following 2 years of contract. The committee looked at comparables in Franklin County, which have gone up as the demand of business directors have gone up, and it puts her in the upper half of where people are at in Franklin County. And
Well
the amount
deserved.
of money that Shelley deals with in day in, day out, the difference, the increase there, she can make in a single she can make back in a single good decision that she brings to one of our meetings. It just really is. It's 5 budgets. It's overwhelming. It's a lot. And, yeah, we're in a tough spot without somebody like her, or without her, or somebody with her skills, and it's hard to come by. So, anyway, so it is. Sometimes we do a joint meeting on this. It was decided by the chairs. We're just going to do it during the regular meetings going forward. So you need to vote to accept the contract. And you can add Bob and sign it.
Motion to approve that contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Congratulations.
Congrats. Well deserved.
Thank you.
It was unimportant.
I
You
guess
just
you-
seconded that.
Kind of a 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
This meeting.
You got the next one?
Right. So the next one was immigration enforcement in schools. You know, there was a lot of conversations about, as you've seen in the paper, and the concerns about ICE agents coming to school and looking for enforcement of immigration in schools. We did a training with our administrative staff at our last administrative meeting, basically procedures for immigration officials should they come to the school and request to take a student, meet a student, try to find information on a student, do any business with the school. We put forth very, very clear guidelines that I can show you, that our
Thank you.
front office people have also been trained on, principals have been trained on, but basically any immigration agents who come to the school must be processed through the superintendent's office. Okay. One of the biggest concerns is that agents cannot come to the school. There's a lot of misinformation that's out there. There's a lot of fear based on misinformation. There's a right to have fear out there because there is I'm not trying to downplay that. I'm just talking about within schools. In order for a nice agent to come to the school and even get acknowledgement that such student exists in the school, they need to have a judicial warrant. And a judicial warrant is a type of warrant that is signed off by a judge. There are other types of warrants out there. ICE immigration enforcement has their own internal warrants. So we're looking for the following people who have broken their residency agreement or whatever the story may be, and they will print out their own warrants to go find these people. That does not give them access to a public school. A public school, while it says the word public, is not a public place. We have things that doesn't allow the public to come into our building, much like a private home. So you have to have a judicial warrant. The administration's all been trained in what one looks like, but we also are putting the caveat that we're going to use our legal counsel should a nice agent come to school, or any agent from any government agency. They don't have access to the school. And so our local police, they're talking about, well, we're going to use local police. Local police don't have the right to go and take a student unless they also have a reason or immediate danger, right? So if someone has a weapon or that kind of stuff, that changes the rules, but you can't just come to the school to do that. And so that includes all information. Students are protected under FERPA and so forth. And I think one of the big things that's, and it was kind of talked about earlier, Sally was talking about it, is that it's the law that students who are, I use the kind of the words here. In 1982, the Supreme Court, case Plyer versus Doe ruled that undocumented children have the same right to attend public school as U.S. citizens. So that's the law that we are under. And I think people are, it's a time where laws are getting loose, but we've invited and told these students that come here, they are safe here. The fact that they dropped the, that they would leave schools alone and that kind of thing is just absolutely disgusting in my opinion. That the fact that we're saying two things, as a government, where we're saying that undocumented children and they have a right to attend public schools because it is in our best interest, it's in those children's best interest, no matter where they go in life, that they get educated while they get educated here. So to make them fearful of going to school is, I don't know, the diabolical thoughts that this administration has. We have concerns about immigrants that, that discussion can be had, but why they want to have that fight in schools is is ridiculous. So, anyway, so we will protect students in our schools. We'll make sure that their rights are upheld. You know, should an agent come with a judicial warrant, you know, we will have to comply with a judicial warrant. In an elementary school, speaking of this group, why a fourth grader would need a judicial warrant, I just randomly pick a class, would be never. But, you know, maybe, you know, that kind of thing. So,
We don't have to vote on anything.
so again, I did send you, there's two things, there's a policy and a resolution. So, school committees around the state, this is coming out from, I'm not sure if this was from MASC or if this was from, the National Association, but basically filing resolutions, as a school committee saying that, you know, you're going to protect students in the school. The policy is basically, as you look at our procedure, is the procedure. You don't need to do anything to protect students right now. But long-term, you may want to consider, if you have it a policy, that means if I leave and someone else comes in and has a different way of handling policies, procedures rather, it's around ICE enforcement, they would have to follow your policy. So I bring this to you because Missy, the chair of Frontier, said, she sent it along to me. She said, I'd like to bring this to the Frontier discussion, and they're meeting next week. And so they may put it on their agenda in March to be an official, you know, become an official policy and discuss. So it sends a message out there that you're in agreement with our policy, puts a little more strength into it. But like I said, you know, our procedure stands solid. And then the resolution is exactly that. It's giving your beliefs on issues that are out there that affect students. So these aren't mine. These are another associations. Obviously, I took a lot of our procedures from not just this policy, but what's recommended out there across the state and across the nation. So I didn't want you to get behind in people talking about it. So that's for you guys to discuss. I can also put it on March's agenda. You can follow what, you know, the school committees are doing, or if you guys would like me to move forward and craft something or that kind of thing. That's, you know.
You want us to vote on this, or?
So
you
you
want us to-
it wasn't on the agenda as a voting policy, so you'd be kind of against your own rules there. I can put it on the next meetings. I can put it on the next meeting agenda to look at the policy. I think the policy is the way to go. Resolutions are great. Policies are, that's how you're running things. It's kind of like, it's kind of, you know, this is kind of like, this just makes this is a statement, this is a speech, this is the action, right? This is, I'm holding a policy.
The motion to introduce that as a policy for the March meeting.
So yeah, this would be something like this. I can bring the March meeting to be a first read. You can also waive your double reading, and you can, you know, knowing that you go into that if you want to make it that kind of thing. So
Yeah, this is a very similar to what's going around the Northampton schools as well. And
Yeah.
do all teachers or have all teachers or will all teachers get a copy of it? And
policy.
the policy as well as the like simple one
We
pager.
certainly can forward this along. It's been shared with your staff and whatnot. I mean, your office staff and stuff. I don't know if you send it with, we can send it along there.
I think my teachers might want to know too, just in case they're standing by the front door or something like that.
They're nodding.
Certainly can move that along, and then I'll put together whatever recommendations come to adding the wordsmithing this thing and try to find the best, you know, policy there. So they'll look at something like this, and then we can read it through and Cool.
Okay, I have nothing, anything new with the collaborative?
Yes. I'll try and be quick about it, but it was a very bizarre meeting. The theme, since I've been working with the collaborative, has been optimistic. The tone has been optimistic. And then at the meeting the other day, they sort of revealed that they were about $2 million in the red, which, so I went back through my notes and just nowhere had I jotted down, even with a smiley face after it, like $2 million deficit. Like it's Frowny face. Sorry, yeah, sorry. Upside down smile, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was the reason it came on my radar even before the meeting is they shuttered their licensure program, and that was a big deal because it's leaving 60 people who enrolled in that licensure program at a time when we're starting to get teachers sort of out in the cold. I think they're working hard to see if they can transfer credits and doing everything they can. There are three main drivers behind this deficit. And one of them is how they're dynamic with DESE and how they have to relate or budget. Some of their deficits is different now. They are saying that the way that smaller grants are being distributed to programs like the CES is no longer favoring them. It's going to different small businesses. And the last part, which was, and all of these were sort of contested in the meeting, is sort of like, how did you not, ESSER grants ran out. We also had that, and we also sort of embraced that was coming down the roads. And maybe what they didn't quite factor in is that as ESSER grants stalled in schools now are spending less on things like professional development. So there was sort of a funding cliff that they ran full speed ahead right off of. They are taking steps, and again, for someone who's been really admiring the CES, was sort of very sobering and disappointing meeting. So they have let go. Staff is the biggest part of the budget, so they've let go of, I think it's 10 positions in their licensure program, which was a big deal. And it seems like the staff was not really told until when they got their letter that this was something they were considering. They've increased their rates for things like professional developments. They've done some internal reorganization. It's a multi-year process. They've already saved, because of these decisions, about $800,000. They've voted to eliminate vacation carryover, which is going to save an extra $200,000. And some of the higher level cabinet members are giving back some of their budget. For the positions that are running grants, there's no change, but it seems like there was some optimism that was misleading, and they've been hit really, really hard. And it's a big loss, I think, for the community. They do a lot for, again, all the early education, early childhood, and developing curricula for students that are incarcerated. I mean, they do so much. And so it's just a bummer that this is happening. The CEO seemed optimistic that they could come out on top, but I think it's going to be a lean 3 years for them.
Welcome to the party.
So like
Relative to that,
Yeah.
I feel like we're doing okay.
the biggest issue people seem to have was just like, how did we know that? Like, how did we? And they talked about they use multiple programs that don't coordinate with each other. I don't know.
Correct me if I'm wrong, didn't they also have somebody that stole money from their,
Yes.
how much money was
They
that?
stole, I think it was $75,000, and they have gotten 20,000 of that back. And there's a restitution plan to get the rest back, but that's a
I
multi-year.
didn't know.
No,
I thought it was more money, but it's still 75,000.
That's a job, right? That's a position. So,
You said raising rates, so what we paid.
professional development rates might go up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the services that they offer. So that was the latest update. I think once the dust is settled, next month's meeting will also be sort of interesting to see, now that we've all processed it and sort of have new questions. Yeah, we'll see where they are and what the options are available to them. I know that at like Northampton, we use them all the time, and they offer us free credits even for teaching. So they do a lot, and I hope it's something we can recover.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Darius, what do you got for us? Okay,
See
are we
above.
good?
That's it.
Yes, it's see above.
See about, yeah,
Talk
no,
about
I got no special announcements.
Are we going to executive session? No.
I have a question about the homeschooling, the children being allowed to participate. We never voted on that. I thought we were going to.
Just done.
Didn't we table
I think
it?
it was tabled already.
Just curious or something that we, so we're just, it's in limbo. It's not one way or the
It
other.
didn't really affect the elementaries, so it was voted on at Frontier, voted down at Frontier, or they tabled it officially at Frontier. Whatever it didn't pass.
It did not pass.
And the,
No, it
And then
didn't.
the elementary schools tabled it after it
Yeah.
didn't pass.
so it's, if there are students that are homeschooled that are participating in the sports, they still are allowed to because we haven't voted one way or the other.
It doesn't affect, the town programs are not school programs. There's no sports at Wheatley.
But what about
Other
like
than
Girls on the
Girls on
Run or something? They could participate in that?
But that's not a school program.
program.
It's not a
Not a
school
school
program.
So
So
none of, there are no
really
school,
nice
there are no
parents
school
giving their
programs
time.
that are, so.
Now
Yeah.
she's got to start.
All right, cool. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't,
Yeah.
I coached the basketball, the
I remember.
fourth grade basketball team, and there's some homeschool kids in there, and I want to make sure that they can.
They
They can
Yeah,
stay.
that's
Sounds like
that's
it's
the department, right?
What it does, in my little note taking thing here, it does say. executive
So we
session.
can go to executive session for an update on negotiations.
Yeah, do you guys want to?
Yes, I would like one.
So, you do a motion to go in executive.
We have to do
session?
both of them,
No, just,
the top one,
Move to go in executive session.
MG. I'm gonna put all that, so.
we have to do a thing, so I'll just say it. So, somewhere down there.
We need to- we got a motion in a second. Do you want to vote?
vote? Section 21A, to discuss strategies and requests with respect to collective bargaining, teachers and instructional assistants, they will not return to open meeting to conduct any business.